Hello, this is Dr. Ruchir, Sehra here, host of the Performance Enhancer podcast, where we feature top leaders on performance and health. And we're lucky today to have as our guest, Daniel Hill. Well, I'm excited today, Daniel, to introduce you as our guest. Daniel has been a life coach, a mentor, and a therapist since 2006, specializing in assisting others, typically through online video. So before there was ever a pandemic and this world of Zoom out there, you were already doing this, to master their psychology using your expertise and knowledge of the Enneagram, as well as in helping clients to master their emotional well-being using a variety of unconscious tools on the unconscious mind at the unconscious level. Daniel, I'm always impressed. You're dedicated to helping people find meaning and peace in their lives, which can profoundly affect a person in mind, body, and spirit. And I know how important that's been in my career. And you focus on helping people live a life of value, to understand the power of their belief systems and to achieve the results they require. You're skilled and experienced in a vast number of cutting edge tools. Hopefully we'll talk about some of those today, and practices that have positively assisted the unconscious minds of well over 2,500 clients throughout the world in permanently changing how they feel. And what I like best is you have this YouTube channel out there. So for any listeners out there who want to get a feel of what Daniel's all about, you've put up over 350 videos. I only watched a few of those, but they're really fun to watch and very informative. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ruchir. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. And one of the questions I've been starting our guests out with over the past year plus is, we're obviously living in an unprecedented time. So it's hard not to start off by talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. What are your thoughts on the lasting effects of the pandemic, not just on your clients, but companies and society as a whole?
Well, I paused because I'm not 100% sure, like everybody, but I do know that through adversity, the human spirit grows. It finds something. And we talked about this before, because Ruchir and I have spoken a week ago or so, and we agreed on this, that it's the bad stuff that, I mean, I've just done a video and it was quite crude, but it's, and I won't swear, but it was the, let's call it the poop. The poop we go through is the manure for tomorrow. And we're going through a lot of poop. We're going through a lot of challenge. It's no one could have predicted this. There's been films in the past and what we've got through, somehow we're still functioning, aren't we? I mean, like, you know, my business is online now purely. I did see clients before that. Everybody is having to adapt. And it's rather like when people get ill, they may be diagnosed with a sleep disorder. Life as we knew it is no longer what it is. And so evolution has to adapt, and we are part of life. We're nature. We're not separate from nature. So nature has to adapt, and we are nature. There's a tendency to believe that, you know, we're human beings living in nature, but we're made of the same stuff as stars. Look at back of Ruchir, he's in the cosmos there. We're made of the same stuff as stars. And so it's our ability to adapt. And I honestly don't think anything more than that. How Daniel Hill has got to this place in his life, like Ruchir has got to his place, has most likely been through incredible challenge and incredible challenges. And it's through those challenges that we find answers, we find new things inside of ourselves that we weren't even aware of before. And what I know through my personal journey and that of all my clients is the ones who really stick with me and they work through a transformational process, they will say the adversity that they went through was a blessing. And so I don't sense anything more than this is just an isness, another color in the landscape of our life. And I live as presently as I can with it, because there's no other way of being able to deal with it without getting into your ego and then that causes all different types of issues. We
No,
are
it's
where we
very,
are.
it's very good. I think one of my mentors always told me, we discussed this before, that you only build muscle when you're faced with resistance. You have to lift a heavy weight to build that muscle, and this is a resistance to our soul or to our mental status. And it helps us become stronger if we take it the right way.
Yeah, psychological, emotional, even spiritual muscle. And we're in the gym of life, and life comes and gives us these weights and goes, hey, humanity, here you go. And whoa, we're not ready for this. I didn't sign up for this. I'm not doing this. I'm just me. It has massively impacted my life personally in many different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm sure with you as well.
Of course. I mean, it's you come out of it, hopefully at the other side, very positively, as I have at least. But, I wouldn't change the experience for anything, but it was a challenging experience for myself, family, everybody around us,
And we're all still doing it. It hasn't ended.
True.
And no one's any idea how long it's going to be and the impact. It is what it is.
Well, we seem to be adapting to how we live with it, if we have to live with it, and how we move forward if we can put this in the rear view mirror, so to speak. How did you get interested in becoming a life coach and therapist? And I guess kind of going with that, how did you decide on the practices you wanted to focus on the tools you wanted to do, et cetera?
Okay. Well, I got into this because of health reasons myself. I had the most chronic anxiety and sleep, or lack of it, which the root cause of that was autoimmune disease. So it became a decision to do everything that I could to transform my life, because I refused to be someone that was ill. You must accept it, Daniel. No, I'm not going to accept it. I understand that what they were attempting to do that, and there is a truth in that the acceptance of it creates some peace. So that's something that I call be with the non-being, but it doesn't mean that you accept it, that this is how it is and how it will always be. So there's an acceptance of the isness of the present moment and of the circumstances of what's happening. And so it was just pure passion for making better of something that was bad, which is very similar to what we've just discussed in the first 5 minutes.
Yes.
And the second part of your question is, why did I get interested in all of these various things? Why didn't I just stick to one modality like hypnosis, or other people just become EFT practitioners, or because I've worked out that discussed this with Ruchir, that we have the same personality type, and that is a questioning nature, which is it's inherent within us. And the second part of that is that there's a drive for knowledge and a drive for understanding, an absolute thirst for it. So there wasn't one thing that I could latch onto and go, I found the answer.
This is who I am.
Hey,
this is the answer.
There's answers everywhere. And as I mentioned in a recent video I did while in the forest with my back to a tree, I think it was, that I said, everything exists. All of these modalities, psychotherapy, counseling, EFT, tapping, hypnosis, everything that exists because it works. So everything works. It's just it works slightly differently. So it's understanding that everything has a place in the world. And for sometimes when I'm working with a client, one modality won't work so well than another modality. So it's just nice to swap from one to one. And often I just work intuitively and something just comes out of me. And ultimately, a client is looking to transform from the place of suffering, of whatever that suffering is, be it physical, psychological, emotional, even spiritual. And it's getting them from here to here, from one place to another place. And that's not about fixing someone. It's about expanding someone's consciousness. And that can lead to someone to developing a recovery from anything. I never say I can diagnose, and I never say I can heal. It's just about working with what is and expanding that, helping people to have more ease in their life. And it's a passion because I wish to have more ease in my life, more ease, more to be financially, have a better income, to make my relationships work better. Everything. Just why are we here on planet Earth? What the hell are we doing here? What are we doing here? What's it all about? So, and if we can't experience a greater reality, then what's it all for? Is it just like endless suffering, or like, is it just about getting the mortgage paid off, or getting a pension, or, you know, what is it? What's it about? What are we here for? And one of the massive, if not one of the biggest riches of my life, if not the biggest richness that I get is the transformational work that I do. It just is addictive. When you get a breakthrough with someone and you're able to help someone, you must know, doing what you do.
Of course.
It's passion. It drives you. You make a difference in someone's life, and it's, wow, that feels good. That feels amazing. And it's a massive need of contribution and adding to consciousness, because you're not just changing one person's life. Doing what you do, you're not just changing one person's life, you're changing the whole family. You're doing, and it's
absolutely,
the ripple effect is enormous.
And that's a really great point. I mean, people rarely talk about this because you do one-on-one sessions, and you know, you're practicing a version of personalized care, personalized medicine, right? I mean, you use all these tools because certain people respond differently to different tools, and you're personalizing it. Just like, let's say, a cancer doctor may use a different cancer chemotherapy with one person versus another, even though they quote unquote have the same cancer. One person, it responds differently than another.
Right.
But the ripple effect piece you just said, which I love, is that we don't often think about the fact that when you help one person, we think about this in economics. You know, you build a factory and we think, okay, it's not just the jobs for the factory, but it's the jobs for the restaurants where the factory workers will go to eat. And it's the jobs for, you know, all of the goods and services that they need to live life. But we don't think about this in terms of healthcare very often. And if you make somebody better, you will affect at least their near world, if not further. And, you know, if you get really into things like chaos theory, you could even talk about like that one change made that person this much better, that had a butterfly effect, you know, that affected all of society.
Through my intervention, children have been born, you know, and I know that's true because they've introduced them to me, and
yes,
all different types of amazing, wonderful things. I just treat people like you do, I'm sure. I mean, yet we can call these things, we need labels for diseases and problems and challenges. It's nice, but that's not set in stone. It's not concrete. You're still treating a person, a human being. What's going on here? And you play detective. What's going on? What can I discover here? And you just find little things here, there, and everywhere, and you begin to make a difference. It's like, don't leave one stone left unturned. Keep finding things. There's always information. Just have to ask people sometimes, what's going on?
It's very good. Well, since you're on the Performance Enhancer podcast, and we met actually because one of our other guests, Riley Jarvis, recommended you, and Riley had this amazing experience in working with you. So I always like to ask people if you can share a bit about your program and what do you consider your top performance enhancer? You know, like, hey, this is my go-to tool that I'm going to start with because I find this can make a huge difference. Or what do you advise to people?
I think one of the greatest tools that I use, and I really like using this one, is the tapping EFT tool. And the reason, I do lots of other things, but I like that one because most people come and they're emotionally toxic. And that means, to me, that they are running so many different programs in their unconscious that are costing them energy. Maybe people who listen to this podcast or whoever listens to this might not call it anxiety. They might call it stress. But stress or anxiety, whatever we wish to call that, even which can lead to low mood, and we can have all different other emotions that go with it. But the top emotion is stress. And when we begin to create peace within someone, or more ease, the energy that you're beginning to free up is enormous. People can start sleeping again, or at least begin to sleep longer. And it's just breaking the cycle of, well, I'm not running that deep unconscious pattern that I once was, that used to make me, I used to have an extra cup of coffee. You know, I'd have to be on alert more. I'd have to be thinking quicker, which wasn't the best thing. Sometimes actually it's better just to take a moment and pause and slow down for you to come up with a more intuitive answer. For personal performance, EFT works extraordinarily well because, as I said, majority of people carry baggage. Even me to this day, I still, because I'm a human being, but so much less than I ever used to, because I was carrying so much, it was making me sick. Absolutely. So one of the things I do is ask clients to make a peace list. And that's a list of things that you know has been in your head, that you've been carrying around with you for quite some time, that you'd like to make peace on. A lot of people just go, oh, it's in the back of my mind. Oh, I don't know, I've forgotten about that, whatever. Well, you have consciously, but not unconsciously. And it's like, you know, it's still using up data. If it was like a computer, it'd be like a virus. It's still using up. Oh, that computer, it's so slow. Oh, here we go again. And you get a piece of virus software or malware fix or whatever it is, and oh, my computer works again. Oh, it's running so much faster. It's no different. This is how this works. You're going and deleting, or at least addressing virus software that's in the back of your head, that's running the show. And it's, you know, we think we might be consciously in charge of our lives. We're massively unconsciously driven. These biocomputers called human beings, we're driven by the unconscious.
It's funny, I'm so glad you talked about it this way, actually, and talked about how this creates stress, because stress is such an impact on human biology. I mean, it's not just in your head. Let's put it that way. You know, it's an old caveman biology response we have in our body. It's designed so we stay alive. Saber-toothed tiger coming at me, I'm going to run away. I need the stress because it's going to make me react quicker. It's going to make me run better. Great for the next hour, terrible for the next 10 years. You know, not healthy behavior for 10 years. It's fine for an hour, you know, and understanding that we've got these kind of old biologic pathways that are not always, they haven't evolved to deal with modern society, because technology and society may move much faster than our biology can keep up with it.
Yes, 100%. When I was learning NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming, back in 2006, we were told, you're the doctor, you tell me, but that if the saber-toothed tiger jumps out on you, you would run this huge amount of anxiety, and then you'd go and sleep. As long as you got away from the saber-toothed tiger, you'd go and sleep it off in the afternoon. You'd be like, oh, you know, whatever. But we don't. We go from saber-toothed tiger to saber-toothed tiger. There tends to be one thing after the other. The real high achievers in life, the ones that are, you know, making a significant impact in the world, maybe financially, in whatever business that they're in, would be running a really good operating system. I would say that they won't be carrying huge amounts of stress. Some may, but that will catch up with them at some point. The ones who function really well have great beliefs about themselves and about the world. And really, that's all we're talking about. We download information from the womb to up to 12 years old And we're not fully conscious until that time. You are a massive sponge for the first 12 years. You download programs. So some of those programs are awesome. I've got some great ones instilled by my parents. Really good ones. I was even speaking the other day, like I said to my mum, I speak quite well. I think that's down to you. She goes, well, yeah. When I went to the convent, the nuns were used to tell us to do this. And I said, that's something that's come from you. But there's also some really bad stuff that came, and that I still have to work on to this day, that probably happened when I was even 3 years old or under. My dad was very stressed. In fact, my dad died at 57. I'm 47.
Oh,
he was so stressed. He smoked. That was his way of dealing with life. And he died nearly 20 years ago. It was on Christmas Eve. You know, and he had a business, he had a factory, we had quite a big house, we were middle class, probably, I think there was about 20 people in the factory. But what was it all for? Died at 57, never even got to see his pension. I just wonder what could have happened, you know, if he was of a later generation. You know, he would have found another way to deal with stress. It's an enormous thing, and people don't realize how stressed they are, most usually until I start working with them, and they're like, something's happening with my brain. Yes, that's oxygen going to it. And then you
how to get oxygen to your brain.
Oxygen
deal with your brain. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you relax. People aren't used to it. Some really aren't, and some are so toxically emotional that it's basically like my peace list, which I ask clients to do, is like just a bullet. Don't tell me everything about your past. Just put it down as a bullet point. My dad was really hard with me. Give me a 0 to 10 on that. 10. My mum never showed me the love that I really needed. 9. My brother used to hit me over the head with a train, like for all of my life. 10 out of 10. And then there'd be an emotion next to each one of those. So it'd be sadness, anger, frustration. And you'd ask someone, and I'd say, well, think about that right now. Now, it might have happened 30, 40 years ago.
Amazing.
But it's like it's happening now.
Amazing.
It's still encoded deep within the unconscious, and that's affecting you at a cellular level throughout the whole of your body. And you start working immediately, and I don't even know how it works. I'll be really honest. But I drive cars. I don't really know how the car engine works. I still drive a car. So all of these tools that I've learned, which are unconscious, we just use them on the unconscious mind at an unconscious level, and it works. And I don't question that anymore. I just go, well, okay, this is it. Here we go. And people feel better.
And it's fabulous. One of the other things, and I've had this discussion with a number of guests, is we don't realize, and we just, we accept, let's say, great things we've done as a species. We take them for granted sometimes. And one of the great things we did, hearing your dad's story, is we've extended human life by a massive amount, well beyond where our biology was supposed to take it. Average life in 1900, the average lifespan for a human was about 38 years. 38 years. I mean, anybody think about 38 as the time you're going to die? Nobody likes to think that way. And today, even with COVID, in the Western world, it's about late 70s, early 80s, depending on whether you're male or female. So, when we realize we've changed so much in our biology, we have to find new ways to live healthy in older ages. We actually don't know that. We're learning this, and through some of these processes. How do we manage our stress? You're really pacing yourself to live to 80, 90, and beyond.
106, Doc, 106.
I love it. I love it. One of the remarkable things for the listeners out there too, how many of us know somebody that's 100? It's a really high number of us.
Yes.
And it was almost unheard of. It was like a biblical number. It was actually in the Bible to be 100, right?
Yeah. So, but I say that because there is an extended member of the family, and he only died in 2015, and he lived to 105. He gave up driving at 100, but only at night. Only at night.
Think about that.
And in his 90s, this is fab. In his 90s, we had a thing in Britain we call Meals on Wheels. So like, be kind of younger people going and taking meals to people who can't get out of their home. Well, he was doing that in his 90s, in his late 90s. And he would go, oh, I do Meals on Wheels for the old people. You're our old yourself, Ernest. You're 98, whatever. He called his son from Charles de Gaulle Airport or whatever. He decided to go on a trip to France, like when he was 99. So when you can see that, and my grandparents lived to 91, 92, and 93 respectively. Other than my father that was smoking, and his father, Grandpa Hill, who was cancer of the esophagus. So I think smoking related, at least passive smoking related. So there's longevity in the family. But when I saw Ernest, and you looked at his, I mean, I was very close to my cousin, and we would talk about like his belief systems. How has he got to this age? And one of the things was that I never saw him stressed. He might have been earlier in his life, but he found a way to lead life where it was, it was enjoyable. We only have to look to the East. I mean, you're Indian, and we have to look to the East, and it's like in some places in the East, they lead a very Zen-like life. Yes. I'm not sure what it's like in India, but I'm sure that there are some wise sages and, deities almost like, that they've lived a life that's very surrendered, and that because it's no guarantee, but because they're not chronically stressed, the whole system is going to be, yes, functioning pretty well all the way through life. I don't think we really understand the impact of it, although I do remember when I started meditation years ago, I remember I saw it in the newspaper, and it was a number of doctors who had got together and went to number 10 Downing Street in London to the Prime Minister. And they'd figured out that they could save the NHS, the National Health System in this country, which is free. We're very lucky to have it, but it could save the millions just by introducing meditation. What they were putting forward was to start this in schools. That's it. Because if you start kids early, start the day, start with 5 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes, the child is going to have something in the brain that goes, I don't have to be stressed all the time. Maybe I can just have a little stillness. I don't think it was really listened to or heard. It's probably far too radical starting the day with meditation. No,
it's a great look. Both my parents teach meditation. It's a big thing in our family, and I do think it's important for longevity, but even more, the life that you live becomes a little more enjoyable. Even if you don't count how many years you live, it's just a little more enjoyable to have a happy, good, fun life. And it does allow you, as you said at the beginning of this discussion, you try to live in the moment. It allows you to live in the moment. Meditation is not easy. It is a practice, and it takes work. And I fall off the wagon all the time.
Me too. It's called being a human being, but it's about how soon you can get back on the wagon.
Exactly.
And so it's a lot of people will say, it is hard. Yes, that's why, but so is going to the gym.
It is. Yes. You have to have some resistance, to build them up.
Absolutely.
So we're coming up on 30 minutes. Daniel, I could talk to you for hours like this, but we like to leave our listeners with a set of lightning round questions. So what's your favorite book of all time?
I'm going to say The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Dom Richard Ruchir and Russ Hudson. Close second would be The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
I'm going to have you send me those on email, so I'll put it on our listing for this podcast if people want to look it up. What are you most looking forward to personally or professionally in the next few months?
I'm continuing to slowly write my first book, and I really enjoy the process of that and the working through the resistance to it.
Yes, very good. And what are you currently reading or watching that you would recommend?
I don't read a lot anymore. There's some part of me that's got to a place where I don't feel the need to do that, which I see as a good sign. I am watching, there's a lovely, in fact, I think I told you about this about a week ago. There's a lovely man called John Butler. So yes. He is the same Enneagram type as us. So I'd say he's a phobic type 6 on the Enneagram with a 5 wing. And he has a huge following. I like listening to him. He's such an evolved, beautiful, humble man. He meditates as many as 4 hours a day still,
Wow.
in his 80s. It's
Amazing.
just got so much stillness. It's lovely.
It's great. And if you could change one thing about your work or whatever you're doing, what would it be?
I wouldn't change anything.
Lovely. What a great ending.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, Ruchir.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.